And as soon as we go live, I kind of need to cough. Welcome to our live board meeting, which we don't quite know if it's a board meeting today. I can give an update on what we talked about last week. Tomorrow is our first solution raising. It's on education, and it will take place here at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be discussing how we can have an inclusive education system or an accessible education system for everyone. So that should be fun because it's our first time doing it, and we'll see how it goes. 15 minutes to discuss the problem and how it currently works, 15 minutes to discuss the future and how it could work, and then half an hour to come up with a potential solution that is doable with 10,000 people and $100,000. And then next week or 2 weeks after that, because then we're doing Richie's project at 2 p.m. the next week. He okayed that. He said that that works for him. So that should be good. A different time slot on the 29th of February, our bonus day, the leap year. And then today we could talk about the Facebook group, the Game B one that we all joined, the technology one.
Yeah, I think that might be an interesting discussion.
All right. The other option is to just talk about trust or do the more meta project of that, but we were kind of shaky on that at the end of the last one, so it wasn't fully decided. I haven't actually had that much of a chance to look at that Facebook group. I don't know. They're looking at existing tools, right? More so than creating them from.
It seemed like it, but it also seems quite new. And the vibe I got is they're trying to solve a lot of the same problems that we are. So there's, it seemed like a really good sort of collection of people, and just that the whole goal is the same as the goal of like TogetherTec and this board meeting. Seems like there could be some really good overlap.
Yeah, and I was wondering, we're a non-competitive space, so it takes me a little while to get used to not competing.
It's hard.
So I mean, this may be another point where we have to because they're moving on, seem to be, as far as I could tell, unaware of anything that we've done so far, or so yeah, I guess the only thing I'm trying to think is make sure that I'm kind of prepared to change direction as necessary. But also there's a good chance that what they're doing won't actually have the same overlap, and it may not change anything we do.
Yeah, I did see I think it was the phrase group of groups, which seemed to give the same sort of vibe as the meta project, as like the general goal.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Bentley, in that I think that it actually might end up being like almost two sides of the same coin, where they seem to be more focused on existing tech and what can we use and what should we be using to talk about. And then, as far as I can tell, we're trying to solve like the actual project to project. How can we share? What does cooperation look like in a world where we have to get used to cooperating and not competing and that whole thing. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll end up stepping on, various toes as we try to figure out who goes where and who's doing what. But I'm glad you found that and sent that out. That was interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. Facebook search is so horrible. I can't even find it now. Here we go, Game B online tools. I mean, I could go find the link that I put out there, but I just thought I'd go to my groups tab and it'd be there, but apparently not.
Yeah, it seems to take a while. It took Game B a while to show up in my groups tab on Facebook.
There's also
try and pin it.
Game B conversations, which is like, it's funny because it's like chunking down what the Game B Facebook group is like conversations, is just conversations, like video conversations posted.
I don't know if y'all saw the original post before it's an intentional breakdown into 5 different sites or something. So, and the main one is the Game B menu. Actually, I can't remember the name of it now. That has a link to all the other Game B homepage. So if you haven't seen that, you might just go look and see if there's any other groups you want to participate in. Pin to shortcuts. There we go. Yeah.
Game B homepage. Conversations, Game B, online tools. The wiki, which we're also both part of. Cuba 2.0, which I don't know how maybe that is. Like, I feel like, or maybe Justice Game B. But we're also, a few of us are part of that. We're part of it. Communities and Hangout. So I'm not part of communities or Hangout. I don't know what Hangout's supposed to be. A space for Game B members to chat about their hobbies and interests. No politics. And then the communities is like the physical space, which I think is, someone has gotten in touch with both Bentley and I about their project. I don't know if he's in the Game B space. Might be the person watching right now. Is Zayad? Is that his name? Zaid?
Yeah.
So I've been reading through his project. I have to say that's one of the fun things about being in this space is getting to read. Like, I feel like how directors get scripts given to them to look through. Yeah. It's like, next world-changing project. What do you think of this? And it's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy looking through other people's. This is like a 45-pager, but it's very similar to ideas I've had, and I'm sure both of you have had as well. It's more focusing on creating a community and how to extrapolate that. But yes.
Yeah, and I thought on the Game B homepage there was also a group for doing in-person communities. I don't know if you saw that. I didn't hear you mention it. But we might make sure he's aware of that. Unless I missed it.
Do you mean in person, like meeting up in real life and having like this kind of like having a conversation? Or?
Like living together in real life.
Yeah, that is Game B communities. Yeah.
Communities. Okay.
Yeah. Because it was people like Colleen who were more focused on that aspect of it. And that's why I brought up Site.
Yeah.
Was like that's that like type of project. I just don't know if he's in Game B because he contacted me through Facebook in a different way. But looking at his Facebook group, like normally I don't accept friend requests that are from people I don't have multiple friends in common with. But looking at his Facebook page, I was like, no, we have enough other stuff in common and you look like a real person. So I'm good.
Yeah.
And that my Facebook group is now populated with Game B people. That and EOL, which seems to be imploding at the moment. It's like all my communities have crap going on at the moment. So it's interesting. It's an interesting kind of tumultuous time. My body seems to have tumultuous times too at the moment. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't actually looked at the technologies Game B part yet, but it looks promising. Like to me though, like I want it in a spreadsheet. We talked about before. Like I want to know when I have a problem, what tool's the best and how do these features compare to these features? And then I want us to all get to the same conclusion that none of these are going to cut it because we have to interconnect and we need something that's going to like be brought from the ground up, which might not happen. But
yeah, so far they have they've posted like 5 different existing online tools. So Hilo, TogetherTec. I don't think I was aware of any of these.
Well, Hilo we talked about last week, right? That was
that the one? Okay.
Yeah. And so that's all tech to like help manage a member community that they're looking at now?
Well, I don't think that that's specific.
Oh.
They're just, I mean, it's just tools to be useful in building out Game B and a group of groups home, but they haven't said what they mean by group of groups home. So I think they're throwing out different, Kevin Jones throwing out different ideas and Jim saying, well, that's not what I was thinking. So to say that they have a clear direction, I think would be a little bit premature.
Okay. But like just the start of having people have.
Yeah. They're just like thinking we need, I'm not even really exactly sure. I was going to post on there, but I haven't yet to say, okay, so what features are we looking for? Because I know what you and I, we've been discussing about kind of what a group of groups needs, to be able to find your place in and stuff like that. But I don't know from what they've said that that's really what they're looking for. I mean, they just may be looking at a chat tool that's open source that,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so I don't know.
Based on the name of it, I would expect it to be multiple things. And so I would think that it should almost be like how, a big enterprise company deals with something like this, where like, hey, here's the 10 things that we need, like the 10 problems that we need to solve, probably each one with a different piece of software. We're going to look at something like community, just as you said, Bentley, trying to figure out what features do they need, cool, and then creating a system around it. Like if we're trying to solve this problem, here's the 10 features that might have. Here's where each of these 5 solutions sits. Here's, the rough score that we gave and why. And then in the end, you end up with, oh, this has the highest score, seems like the best one. And then you can see is it good enough or not to move forward, or are we just saying there's not a good enough tool now?
Yeah. But, I got together with friends on the weekend, and one of them I was like half asleep while we were talking. But we got a Facebook page for ideacafe.io, and he's looking to make a WordPress site for it. And he sent me the one that I just put in the chat, which is just a plugin that's a forum plugin. And I'm like, I don't know if he understood what I'm trying to create. I don't remember the conversation, because I remember him definitely coming to the idea that the forum was the way, but I don't actually remember the conversation. But maybe you guys, not during this conversation, but could take a look at it and tell me if you think it could work for the Idea Cafe, for the scheduling tool. I think the idea was to have a space that I'm like, I feel like a Facebook group might be better though than a forum for all the rules we've discussed before. But how to use WordPress to facilitate Idea Cafe, or like the scheduling piece of the conversations, which is maybe conversation with the conversation people in the scheduling and doing. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
I'm putting a clarifying post in the so ability to list out, what are we looking for? Like the ability to list out groups, ability to list out peoples, match the two, chatting, document store, collaborative document editing. Yeah. So I was going to post that the other day and got distracted. So yeah, but get a little clarity in there. But yeah, so it's interesting. We'll just see how much that kind of overlaps with what we want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's any problem with overlap, especially at this point in time when it's basically want to do something, run with it until it comes up strongly against something else, right, and then pick which one's the best, I guess.
Yeah.
Or both run parallel until.
Yeah, I did want to suggest a conversation. So, Jubilee, I don't know if this would fit in one of the Idea Cafes, but a couple times we've talked about kind of documentation about game being stuff like that, and specifically Jonelle has brought up a concern about making things too concrete, and I don't feel like I understand enough of that concern, but I haven't figured out how to have a conversation about that. I'm not even sure what terms she used. I'd have to go look it up. I don't know if would that fit into the kind of a game B topics.
If we could craft it into a question, yes, it would fit with the Idea Cafe. But since I also don't understand Janelle's stance, I had the conversation with one of the Omega groups, I think it was the Wednesday one, we're talking about permeable membranes and how one of the issues with the Game B Facebook group is that you're either in or you're out, right? And so in that way that it's concrete, but it both doesn't have a boundary and does have a boundary. And I would need to go rewatch it again to be able to explain it. But to me, that Game B needs to exist outside of one thing. At the same time, it's very confusing without it being concrete, without kind of having a calendar of what's going on and definitions, and which is kind of what the wiki is trying to do. And things are coming together and kind of coalescing, but I need it to be concrete. It's how we need the tools. We need the tools to be not 5 different people in Game B working on a very similar project that isn't none of them are going to work because the energy is dissipated, and half the projects are on Janelle's and half the projects are on Kira's or Kylie's, and it's having those conversations. And the idea is that having more organization breaks it. And I'm like, but I need organization. There's something there. But
was there the concern provided as to why they didn't want things to be concrete?
Well, she phrased it. I'm just not sure that I could reiterate it. in an effective way. I didn't understand it enough to reiterate it, but I understood it. I mean, part of resilience is not having, and so the concerns I think is reducing resilience and creating dogma. But I think you can have structure. I think you can have suggestions without having mandates. I think you can have, documentation without dogma.
Right.
So, but I kind of need to understand better what her concerns are to make sure that we can get what Jubilee and I would like without encroaching into her concerns. So yeah, I don't know how to phrase that. Maybe we could just approach Jonelle and say, okay, we kind of maybe even take a couple for phrases. Say, we heard you say this. We don't understand it. Can we have a meeting to discuss it? And maybe it's just a discussion on resilience.
The wiki being too concrete, or the space, or what?
The discussions that I'm recalling were before the wiki. It's when people were talking about, or maybe it was actually in the wiki video discussion. No. But at some point we were talking as the onboarding. I think the last time I remember her bringing it up was on the onboarding, and they actually decided to not do onboarding based on that concern.
Okay.
And I think that's a bit binary. I think there's a way you can do an introduction without building dogma, but I didn't understand enough of what the concern was to be able to actually engage.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I would kind of agree that like the initial intro maybe shouldn't be too concrete and dogmatic, but then per project, like if somebody wants to make a really open, flowy, nebulous thing because they feel like that's what it should be, they can do that. It sounds like everyone involved so far with TogetherTec is a fan of it being concrete but like adjustable. So we start out saying, here's what that is. Oh, people don't agree. Okay, what should this term be?
Yeah.
Okay, 80% of people agree with this. All right, that's the new definition then.
I don't think that her discussion had anything to do with projects, just with Game B space in general. So I don't even know that her concern would be on a project basis. So for TogetherTec. But since some of our TogetherTec ideas are talking about documenting Game B, like that's our reason for the participation in the wiki, I'd like to make sure I understand that concern before we go too far.
Yeah.
And I think it's valid. She seems to put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah. I think it is important to note, like from what I'm seeing from what TogetherTec is it's our best guess as to what Game B looks like put into practice. And like to start actually working on, okay, so how do we collaborate on projects? And how do we do this? And you need to be concrete because we're actually trying to do things as opposed to like theory crafting and, trying to figure that out. We're going to be wrong more than they are because we're being concrete. And that's something that we have to be okay with.
Yeah. And she is very much in that place. Like, I mean, she's also working on stuff and doing it, but it's also a little bit along from the vibe I get, like, oh, people will just find their people and form things, and that nebulousness will like lead there, which I both agree with. And also as somebody who finds it hard to find my people until I found Game B, it's not a guarantee. Can we put something a little more concrete where like people aren't just wishy-washy in the space, like, wait, how do I participate? How do I like to be able to have an option for onboarding, even if it's not mandatory, to be like, hey, if you want to find out more, go here, right? Here are the things you can participate in right away. Here are the things you need to be at this level before you participate in, or whatever those, like, the more we can make it accessible to people, the better. But I think the idea for the concrete thing is somewhat the Tau that can be named can't be, or once you've named it, it's not the Tau, or whatever that saying is. That comes up all the time. It's like the Tau that can be named is not the Tau. And it's like, yes, but that's not really Game B. Like, it's like both, yes, it's in the future. No, we are never going to obtain it. And there are real things we can be doing to make that the best possibility and bring people on board. And how do we work with people on board? And how do we do it with existing tech? And how do we create new tech? And for that not to be concrete is going to hurt it. More so than help.
I might choose a different word than concrete, because concrete does imply unchangeable.
Yeah.
Well, you just want something
specific,
written down. Really, actionable. It's really all we want. We just want it accessible and documented. It can change, and it can be say this is not an end all be all, and maybe that should be the first rule, rather before rule omega is We don't know what we're doing. It subject to change.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Always
And I
open
think
to
that
being
is
wrong.
what we're doing.
Eternally under construction, something like that.
Yeah. Which is
But
like
yeah.
the frustration I have felt with not being able to get my idea down on like a white paper and get it out into the world has been definitely dissipated over like when as I see people's white pages and I like can be like, well, but this doesn't work and this works and this doesn't work. Like the idea of TogetherTec and a big tech cooperative that anyone can join is that as people join it, it shifts and changes completely. Like once you have a business plan, it's outdated anyway. And so having something that is like a living document, whatever that means, that is evolving and changing, and it's kind of like come and participate in it and say what it is, and that's not concrete. That is like way too nebulous for people. And yet I'm just waiting for there we go. There's Jonas. Hello, Jonas.
Howdy.
And finding the.
I don't think we can hear Jonas.
I think I heard like a whisper.
Can we hear you, Jonas? There we go.
I had technical difficulties and apparently still have.
Yeah, I can hear you.
But I did try to catch up with you guys in the live YouTube video stream in the meantime, so
all right,
kind of up to date, more or less.
Awesome. And so creating like what we're doing here, although we're all Game B players, isn't Game B, right? Like we're not even it's like very parallel, we're trying to create omni-win, but like if we fail, Game B doesn't fail. If Game B fails, we don't fail, right? Like it's like very, like we're creating omni-win, we're using technology, we're getting together, figuring out how to get shit done in the public eye while like just figuring all that piece out, the messy part, all of it, so that everyone can see, so that even if we fail, there's something that comes out of it, right? Like the learning process.
Which might be, hey, these three things seem to work. Those two may have been what sunk that project.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll take those notes. Everyone can have them, and then the next group to try the same thing can learn from it.
Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking through, maybe her goal is to keep Game B more nebulous, and then the individual projects can kind of like Jubilee just said, rise and fall and go through regular evolution.
I think makes sense. And it sounds like, and I think your point, Bentley, was a strong one, where concrete is like, I think the varying ways people can take that will definitely be a point of like people, I think the term I've used in the past is violently agreeing with each other, where it sounds like you're arguing. It's like, but are you really?
Yeah.
I violently agree with people all the time. Yeah, I gotcha. No, but not quite like that. And I like the idea of having it organized more so than concrete. Like I want efficient, organized without it being hierarchical, top down. Like I just got another lesson this week in one of my favorite people has this like Me Too thing happening.
I saw that.
And I'm like, because he's the central figure of this entire culture, if he goes down, the culture goes down with him. Like, especially since it's based on authenticity and he wasn't being very authentic. And so it's like, that is fragile, right? If Jordan Hall has a scandal, if Jim Rutt has a scandal, if something like that happens and then it falls apart, like that's not what Game B is. Game B is like in the hearts and minds of a lot of people, not just one person. And yet it is kind of falling apart and falling together at the same time. It's like it is nebulous. And but not to have it be a concrete, like a project could be a concrete thing in one person's vision, right? And like bringing people on board, but one thing failing isn't going to make all the other ones fail. And owning that, like making it as resilient as possible, like TogetherTec, right? Like how do we keep TogetherTec strong, independent of the projects that it's facilitating,
right?
And independent of Game B and if it goes down or stays up and I mean the Facebook group specifically, which isn't Game B, but
I'm wondering how that nebulosity can be also applied to actual projects, to specific projects. Like, I can totally see how Game B in itself is this nebulous thing, and it needs that to some degree, because otherwise it might fall apart. But for projects, can they also stay nebulous for some time? I'm just really generally wondering about that right now.
I would say yes and no. So like you want to get more specific and you want to get more documented, but I think you want to, like I was kind of saying, have the first statement or claim being we're going to change fast, and nothing we've written so far should be considered permanent, and we should probably fight that tendency for as long as possible. At some point, if you're actually like creating technology or something, something's got to solidify. But yeah, so
I mean,
I don't think it would
also
be as nebulous as Game B. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
especially also nowadays with these the possibilities of taking all kind of open source and then forking it and creating your own branch of stuff, and it does feel like it's at least getting more and more also into this kind of sometimes a little bit nebulous what this is actually doing. You start doing something and then people have different ideas, and
right. I mean, I think if Game B is the goal, then each project is like, oh, I think I know how to get there. And then the challenge is, of course, that we aren't all 100% in agreement with what the goal is. So it's...
Which is the fun.
Yeah.
It's like having, like I think tomorrow's solution raising is going to be interesting for that very reason. It's like even just the coming up with the question, people are like, I didn't like that question, I want to offer this question. I'm like, the question's decided on. The point isn't to like, we're not looking at education, breaking it down into all of its problems, sitting with it for hours and days and years, and like, how do we fix it? And it's like literally in an hour, we're coming up with a solution that's a potentially viable solution. And so making that, if we ever made it, isn't nebulous, but neither is the hour-long conversation, right? It's like, well, we're going to see how that goes. We're going to see what that process looks like. And I'm hoping people aren't super attached to the idea they create in an hour, so that you could have competing hours happening all over the place, and therefore pick the best one and then work on that one next, right? Be like, okay, what's the best one that came out of these 20 hours that people did? And then let's improve this one. But eventually, like, a project needs to actually be made. It needs to be broken up into into project management. Things get done, things get paid for, and then we have a thing. And then it's like, if we fork it, it's what does that mean? Right? Does it dissipate it? How can we fork it so that there's diversity without dissipating the energy, without dissipating the data? And there are absolutely ways to do that. If it's not, everybody off on their own, right? Doing their own thing, and then like, you can't code reason score, code wiki election, and then come together and mash them up, right? But you could, as you guys, like, with that in mind, if you made them and then like in the future we mash them up, is that part of what we're doing, right? Like bringing in the earlier. Like, how can we create this so they can be brought together or not, right? That like they are independent, and then eventually having the conversation, okay, what could we do to bring this data together? What could we do so that they're feeding off each other? They're helping each other.
Probably one of the goals of the co-op council is having that conversation, is us saying, should we ever like connect our systems? If so, when and why? And if not, why?
Yeah.
And so talking about that, because exactly, like, if we're keeping them separate because they are distinct enough that they should remain separate, in some cases that might make sense. From what I've heard about Reason Score, it definitely sounds like there could be some overlap. And if we're trying to solve the same problems, Wiki Election could focus on the other part of the problem it's trying to solve and just use that technology if it ends up being an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can be recombined if, while they're being written, they're written with that in mind, like you said, Jubilee.
Yeah. But I think part of the goal would be to, at most, like, they work together, but they're separate enough that if one falls, the whole thing doesn't have to fall as well.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like there's
yeah.
So in the community that I'm part of, there's both tasks that absolutely need to get done, sometimes don't get done, and we have to figure out how they get done. And then there's people who do tasks, want like the props and the, you know what I mean, for doing the task, but in no way needed to get done. Like, it's like, we didn't need another planter and you made a planter, right? You didn't need a bench and you made a bench. Like, it's like these things aren't. And so that's kind of what, like, doing your own individual project could end up being the goal that was needed, but it's more likely going to be a bench, right? Like, it's most likely going to be something that wasn't quite needed, but yeah, okay, you did it, great, it's here. And so how to kind of together figure out what needs to get created, right? And then kind of dole that out and figure out what you've already created that is awesome. How do we bring those together? And doing both of those things simultaneously with people still being able to follow their own individual and group drive, right? Like if I felt stifled between these meetings that I had to like, nothing would be happening because it would be like, I'm like, cool, all I have to do is come to this for an hour. And whatever happened during the week, it's like, I get to bring myself to here and I get to do Idea Cafe separate. And like, I get to run with my ideas. And that feels very empowering instead of like, oh, wait, am I stepping on anyone's toes? I have to have a little bit of trust that if I'm stepping on someone's toes, they're going to tell me, right? And we're going to figure that out. Versus, I don't know, versus something. Like how that tension, right? The tension of like, wait, I worked on this and now nobody cares about it. How many things have I put out there and there's been crickets? That's kind of part of it.
Right.
And so you actually have to learn very early on to do as little work on something as possible before putting it out there. So you're less attached to it and you're more willing to have it fall flat or get momentum and have someone else take off with it, right? Like all of that at the same time, but that's not easy to do. Especially when you like me like to sit in your room and create something from the ground up and be like, oh, this is great, I want to play with this, but it's not a concrete thing. It's only nebulous unless other people can come on board and understand it and do it.
Right.
And we can figure out that process together.
Seems a bit like that sort of, I mean, it's almost like pre-project, or you could say it's the very early stages of the meta project where it's actually verifying the need. Because you can say that's a cool idea and then you show it to the world and if people just don't care, then, I mean, you can move forward if you want, but you might not gain much traction. But it's sort of the opposite, where if you show it to something and people are super psyched, you're like, all right, that's a pretty good sign that we should move forward with this. And if it's the same community, that also hopefully helps prevent 10 different people from building a slight variation of the bench, unless person 1 shows up and they said, yep, that's a cool bench, we want it. People 2 through 9 show up and they're like, that's the same thing that we already have. And then person 10, they're like, that's actually a new bench. That is cool. I do want that as well.
Yeah, speaking of onboarding, I found the GameBee Coffee House Trello board and calendar, and they say to get on it, you need to send a DM on Twitter to GameBee Coffee, but GameBee Coffee has closed.
Yeah.
Direct messages. So there's actually, and then they have a Telegram, and I went in there and posted. When was that? Does Telegram not have the date? It has the time. That is February 17th. I guess it's only been 4 days. And no useful response from anyone. Like, how do you get on the Trello board? Anyways, that's a little frustrating.
Yes, I'm on the Trello board, I think. I saw it before. You mean like to post or just to see it?
To post.
Okay, maybe I...
Or to vote, or to comment, or to have any interaction. Yeah, it's open. It's open to the public for viewing. It's not open for editing. And they have some 38 people on the board, but there's no way to get on the board. There's no way to get onto the board unless you already have a direct connection with somebody, which I guess I could find someone on Facebook probably and direct message them on there. But
if you
think
follow
they'd have a process.
Christian on Twitter, Bentley, it's CHRXN, is a wizard and a sun is his name. And he is the GameBee coffee. He's the GameBee coffee holder.
Okay, see if he is, then I think I checked, and he also has his direct messages blocked unless he's following you. So unless
okay, because he is. So
unless I can make him follow me, there's no way to communicate with him.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a problem.
CX what?
CH. Where are you here? CHRXN.
See. Oh, I'm not even following him yet. So maybe I didn't try. Anyways.
Because I think his messages are just open and you can send him one asking about like what happened to the GameBee Twitter, and this is still on the Trello board. This is who you're supposed to contact. So any idea who's currently doing that? Because I could contact him, but then I'm like introduce you to if you want. But like I don't know how to facilitate the actual getting you on the Trello board unless it's through you, because I don't even know if I have it.
No, it looks like his direct messages are open. Okay. I think. I actually can't figure out how to message requests.
So what kind of stuff is on that Trello board?
Well, first thing, an official calendar. So, I mean, you would think that the idea cafes would be on there, but they're not.
Which would
be on there, or at least the game be the meetings that you Jubilee that you're doing. That I would think that should be on there. They've only had one meeting so far, which was the onboard brainstorming session. I think maybe they had two.
I mean, it's been around for a while. I think the Game B Trello board has been around for a while. I think around September, October, maybe November, and it doesn't seem to be used too much. And that's kind of the problem with that. Like everything's paid, everything's like if I'm like. This is the issue with everyone trying to solve their own problem is that none of the problems actually get solved. It's like I'm an individual and I want to be able to access Trello without paying $10. Like it's like that you have to pay $6 per contributor. So therefore we're already at 24 with us, right? Like for us to be able to have a Trello board that's useful. It's like these things need to be recreated so that like, or Google could recreate them. If Google wants to create Trello so that it's in G Drive, I'm good. And then we can like create from there, even though they'll probably own our souls.
I think as long as the Trello board's open, I think it's free. As long as it's public.
I think there also is, and this isn't just for Game B, that this tends to be a super common thing, but where people are trying to solve problems before it's time to solve them. Like where it's trying to make sure that we can scale up to 1,000 people before we have 5 and actually can start to ask people like, wait, what features do we want? Are people okay with paying $6 a month? Like those sorts of things. And that's like when it came to working on the like the member system for the projects and and being able to say what you need help with, people being able to help. Even with that, I'm like, seems like maybe we're going overkill first. We should find 10 projects that want to participate in 10 people. Just have solve it in the simplest way, like without software, just a Facebook chat or something. And then once you get that very small group of people, then start to look at like, okay, so are we okay with this system? Here's 5 questions I have about the 3 or 4 routes that we could go. What does everyone think?
Mm-hmm. That's trying to be a good thing to do with the people that commented on the, like we have 10 projects that people have filled out for is to just create a Facebook. The issue is we ask them for their emails and not their Facebook Messenger, but Facebook Messenger is probably the easiest so that it is like, hey, what's your project? Well, that's a lot of dinging though.
Yeah.
Like a lot of notifications, but having a space to be able to say, here's my project, maybe we make a, because it's not, as long as we make either, I think Jim or Janelle, one of the admins, we can create a Game B project Facebook group that is one of the meta projects, right? That is one of the, like, it's specifically bring your project here. If it's in any way Game B,
right,
even a tiny bit, and then coordinate that, and like we can take that on.
Totally, like
as
even
our meta
just
project.
like a project, a Game B project board or job board or whatever you want to call it. Where it's not great. It's on Facebook. It's not super scalable. But you know what? Let's get to the point where we're drowning in posts and where it's super annoying and we're missing certain features that we're like, all right, now we have enough people that we can actually ask people some questions about how to solve it, and then B, on day one, if we make some sort of a member portal or pay for it or whatever on day one, we can say, great, here's your users, off to the races, and we've actually got some stuff to pop with it. Because one of my things is I'm really hesitant to do anything that involves another username and password.
Yeah.
And
even
so that's
with LastPass?
That's even with LastPass, yeah.
Yep. Well, it's more because, like, does another company need, or another group or anything, does someone else also need my information? And, like, am I going to use this for more than 2 days? Because 90% of my LastPass stuff I haven't used.
I started making a temp folder where I throw it in until I know that I use it. But yeah, it is a pain.
And so, and once it gets to a certain point, because there is the thing where you're like, oh, it solves that many problems. Yeah, that's worth signing up for another user for. But until we're just like, hey, we're trying to solve this thing, we're one of 78 different groups in the game B space trying to solve it. Do you want another username and password to see if this works?
Yeah, yeah. And so that's where Facebook is the thing, because it's where everybody is, and it's just easier to have the different ones. So I'd say, yeah, one of us should create, like, that seems to be the Facebook group that we need, is the meta project, literally labeled like meta project game B or something, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Like it is not maybe meta projects. I don't know if that really says what it is. Like the project of projects. Like bring your project, you retain ownership, but like come and help each other create OmniWin solutions.
So like, are we thinking that this is just a job board? Like it's, hey, I'm doing wiki election and I need help with this and this. And Bentley's doing recent score, he needs help with this. And each one, is it more besides that? Are we also
definitely more besides that? I think it would be even like if CubeSpawn wants to come and post everything they've done with CubeSpawn, they can, you know what I mean? Like it's a feed of projects. So it's like wiki election can go live there. We can do like, or we can, because like the conversation one is very specific. It's like we're only having conversation posts. So if you post anything that's not a conversation, it's going to be deleted, even if it's facilitating a conversation.
Right.
This is just the place for conversation. And I think there's a beauty to that. But and so maybe it's just the meta project stuff of like, hey, not just what do you think of this, but actually like a call to do a project raising, right? To do like, hey, I want people at this time to come and help me with this thing.
Okay. So it's effectively TogetherTec, but not called TogetherTec yet, because there's no no one knows what that means yet. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think
it's very similar. I think though that they're just. No, yeah.
Like their wiki election. Nope. Game B wiki is potentially trying to do that, but they're like, that's just a page on their board, right? That's not actually like, they're not actually trying to do the meta project. They're not actually trying to say, how do we help each other coordinate our projects and create it, right? So that we're omni-winning from day one and creating it in a way that's enjoyable. And like, what does this look like to get to step on each other's toes? In this space when we're in competition in game A, but we're like not in competition because we're creating game B. And like, what does that look like? And we have the 10 people at least to like be like, hey, here's an invitation to come be part of this, and creating it also so that it's game B tagged, so that because there's going to be tons of people with projects. Those are just the people who saw it, right? The algorithm only helps so much. And so to be able to be on the homepage like, hey, I have a project, right? Bring your project here. As long as it's not an MLM game A, like bring it.
Right.
Any app, any community, any like the communities will be with the communities. So that doesn't necessarily mean, but some of those people will be overlapped, and it will be like Colleen has both the Oshinka project, which is like the online farmers market with Harris, I think his name is. I had a conversation with him. I should know, but and you know what I mean? Like they'd be in both the communities. And so as part of what they could do is that is also a meta project or a project, right? To bring to the meta project is like the people who have communities, what could be facilitated to help people find and maintain their communities. But that's not our focus. Our focus is more on the like tech projects and things that aren't like the online farmers market is a tech project. They're all basically all tech projects, but that's just because I don't know if it's not a physical community, it's a tech project. I don't know anything outside that besides CubeSpawn. I mean, CubeSpawn's not, I guess, like a physical.
Still tech. It's just physical tech.
Yeah, exactly. It's like actual innovation, actual engineering. And it's expensive.
I think we're thinking of like digital versus,
And I think that a lot of that will come out in the wash, right? Like just as we start to get projects, we'll be like, you have a finance one? All right, we'll see how it fits. Cool. Like as long as it doesn't. And I think that also helps some of the areas where we're like, where do we have this conversation? It can start on that group. Like, what are the things that a project has to have or can't have in order for it to be a part of this ecosystem?
Yeah, and I honestly feel like if you're a Game B person, your project's Game B. Like Nick has a project that he's writing a financial app. In no way is it Game B, but he is very Game B. So I mean, as far as I know, right, he's writing it. He's like, and then I'm going to use this money to fund other things. And so,
which I have a couple projects like that too. That especially if they were able to go under the same umbrella. and then we can figure out, okay, so with these like for-profit game B projects, how do we want to handle those? Like, are there certain rules? How are they different from the other projects? That's a super interesting part. Okay, yeah, I can create that. Although I guess we'll have to decide on the name.
Yeah, and
so like game B.
And you can make us. We'll be
game
the
B project sounds too big.
Game B projects, yeah. Although not really. It's like game B projects. It's like because the description is like what it is, right? It's like bring your project.
Yeah.
Are you game B?
That does work well for like for-profit, non-profit. They all start off as projects.
Yeah. It's like any stage, like if you would have participated in a project raising, this is your place to coordinate project raisings, to coordinate if you whatever help you need, right? To be able to have more of like a calendar. Facebook still doesn't have a calendar. Like it still doesn't have a like this group is meeting and like you can see when but whatever.
If actually there is a way to link. If you use Google Calendar, you can take your Facebook and see all the events in your Facebook feed on your Google Calendar.
But that's all of mine, right? So it's all my friends who've invited me to things that I don't even live in the same city with them. And it's like, yeah, I'll come to your kid's birthday. And like, or is it ones I've said, yes, those are my, even then, I'm sure
I think what annoyed me about it wasn't just the things I said yes.
There would probably be, you can probably link individual calendars.
Figure it out, but it would be nice to have
I don't know if they have a different group for each calendar or a different calendar for each group. That would be interesting.
I mean, that sounds like, I think once we get a Facebook page up and going, a lot of it is going to be like popsicle sticks and glue, right? So we'll have like a bunch of sticky comments and side panel things where we're like, hey, here's, a Google sheet of the projects and then a column, for their calendar, for their this, for their that. So just go look at the stuff you're interested in. And then once we get 25 projects and 100 people working on things, or whatever that number ends up being, we can start to look at like, all right, let's actually do this well. What does that look like? Because right now, I think step one is just get people.
Yeah, and the irony also is that like the Game B Facebook group literally has like, don't bring your project here, even though people bring their projects there, right? It's like, if you think you know how to make it, go make it. Don't do that here. And it's like, but we want to make things here. Like, it's like, and so having one that is projects, so people don't necessarily need to post in the major one, but like people who want to facilitate and help each other. Yeah,
that also gives a more useful response to people who are posting project stuff in the Game B. Like, no, go do that here. It's not saying don't do it. Saying, great, that's cool. You have a project. Other people who also have projects and there's a space for it, go over here. And there's, appropriate sticky comments and pinned things and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So do we think that Game B projects, is that?
Yeah, I think for the name of the thing. And then like we need a tagline for like what actually it is, which is better than, but like basically bring your project. And let's co-create OmniWin solutions that help our projects get off the ground, right? And deal with everything that comes up. Popsicle sticks and glue, guys. Let's just...
Okay. And this truly, there's a decent chance that, in a year or two, we rename this channel TogetherTec because it's it's serving the exact same purpose of being that like multi-project facilitator trying to, find common things. It's that. It's just TogetherTec doesn't mean anything yet, so we're going to say it's Game B projects. And try to figure that out and answer questions. And if we come up with a different name in the meantime, that works too. But because part of it was with the project member portal, I was sort of planning on having TogetherTec just be one of the projects. But now it is sort of the layer on top of all of it, which makes sense of it being that group. So with a different name. Cool.
Yeah. And then as people join that are like not Game B, but Game B, then it becomes more about, do you have a project and does it have a mission? It's like both people who are Game B people who have projects and people who've never heard of Game B who are just their projects very Game B, right? Like it kind of brings those, like I said, I don't know if Saeed is one, if I'm saying his name right, and two, if his project, if he's involved in Game B at all. I don't know how he found us. I don't know. Who knows? But like that's the joy of this, is like people are like, I have a world-changing project. Look at it.
Right.
And so people like that are like, yes,
that's an interesting point. if people don't know about Game B, if we call this Game B projects, is that going to be confusing? Is that going to be limiting? Do we, it is projects. Do we call it, I don't know, like, I'm not sure what a better term might be, but do we want something that's a bit more descriptive? Because otherwise you see Game B projects and you have to go fall down a rabbit hole for 2 weeks figuring out, but what is Game B?
I think that's okay. We do want it to be in that Game B space, not necessarily in the Game B group space, but it is a Game B style project.
Right.
And then if people want to participate in that, they should know what Game B is and what Game B is trying to achieve.
Fair enough. I guess we can also take a stab at like a really high level, one paragraph, like what is a Game B project? What are the thing? And then the community can add on over time. But if we're like, it's OmniWin, it's this, it's that, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do need to say OmniWin anti-rivalrous. We just might use more intuitive wording than that.
Right.
And help sense make, right? Like, I don't know if Wiki Election or Reason Score are anti-rivalrous or OmniWin at the moment, but they're sense making, which is absolutely needed for OmniWin and anti-rivalry, right? So
yeah, and I don't
it's like
actually,
one of these things.
Yeah, I actually don't know if it falls under sense making. Because part of me makes me wonder whether when most people use the term sense making, they imply not logical or rational or post rational or whatever. And Reason Score is very much I don't know whether it's left brain or right brain, but it's very much the other side of intuition. It's anti-intuition.
Which is like what you need when you're coming to something together, right? Because like my intuition, your intuition are going to say different things, but like why are they saying that? And then we can find the underlining piece. And that's where like with Game B as the thing that's very nebulous and very, what is it? It's like doing the personal work, doing the meditation, finding your own people, having sovereignty is important, but it's also almost just as important to have a project you're working on, to have something that is like your purpose. And that is what this is. And it's like, you bring your project, bring your current purpose until it either falls away and you find something better, or it becomes something, right? Like one of the two. And so it's like form a group around it, we're not there yet, but like that can absolutely coalesce, right? Like the sense making project, right? Like bringing Wiki Election, Reason Score, and kind of act together to be like, like how do we help each other in that space? Or people are like, wow, I really like Reason Score, and they come and help Bentley on that project, right? For what he says he needs. And it's figuring out how to work in a group, right? How do you work in a team to create something? And what does ownership look like? And what does decision-making look like? And so it's like the personal space thing is like, that's what broke up Game B before. It was like, some people were like, we need to do the thing. And other people are like, no, we need to work on our own sovereignty and figure it out. And it's like both.
Yeah, both.
It's like do the thing while you're working on your own sovereignty. And then it's somewhere where people can come and find a project.
And like you said, I just want to reiterate, doing the thing is a way to practice your internal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess we agree that the priority is practicing on your own and stuff, right? Is to growing yourself. And just so as long as you keep those priorities, it's fine. But I don't think you should say you can't practice while you're learning. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. But like this is where you can, it's just an easier space for some people who are like, meditation, that sounds scary, right? Like, okay, so practice in group, right? Those people might not be welcome, right? They might be too conflicting and they can't be part of a team. But it's us as a team figuring that out, right? To be like, okay, we can't have too much disruption or nothing gets done. But some disruption's needed to be able to move things forward. That tension is somewhat needed, and laying that out. And it's yet because of like that sovereign piece, right? Like as much as I might want to help you guys move forward with your sovereignty, I can't actually, right? Like I can't actually force you to meditate or do it. Like it's like I can offer what I do and vice versa. Same with the projects, right? You can hold on to your project as tightly and as much as you want, but the more you're willing to let it go and the more you're willing to have other people come and work on it and change it, the more it's going to progress in its own way. Or not. Some of them might need to be held tightly by one person, right? Like it's going to be different, and being able to see that what things work for that are common across projects and what kind of projects, and the next person learning from it so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. I mean, it's cool. This is like something that it's like so. It's a Facebook group. We could have done this weeks ago, right? But not really, because it's like it needed to have like the Facebook group kind of breaking up and people creating these different facets to be like, oh, we want that facet. And it's not that like we want it, no one can have it. It's like you have a project, come be part of creating the meta project for projects. Like come be part of that.
I'm a little bit afraid of now having so many different groups that it will fracture into too many tiny little bits of pieces, but
Honestly,
we'll see how it evolves.
For the best. Like it seems
Maybe,
so many people have different concepts about what that game B space should be. Some want concrete, I want to work on a thing, I want to move things forward. Some want to sort of theory craft and intellectualize and plan things. And like there's a bunch of different things where people like they're itching to do their own thing and they're uncomfortable when the group seems to be headed in a very different direction.
Just
like
I'm
very like concrete, do things, what's our next step? Like the thinking and theory crafting is cool. Like it's in my mind the first step, or like, you know, in the early phase, but then I'm like, all right, we answer some questions, let's go try stuff out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that people who are the opposite are, you know, feeling their own issues with where things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonas, I didn't ask you, I had mentioned at the end of the last video, are you coming to tomorrow's idea solution raising on education?
Probably not. It's early, right? 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 9
Probably
for
not.
us, so I think it's like 3 in the morning. 4 in the morning for you? We decided, what is the time? We figure this out all the time, but I can't keep it
Super
straight.
early.
Super, what?
Yeah, so most likely not.
Super early, yeah. Way too early. Not even stay up late early, like very early. And so, but I'm looking forward to it because it's not even about getting the solution. It's about figuring out the process to like make that fun and get the solution. And if we come up with a solution, awesome. And my rigid timekeeping, we'll see. We'll see how well that goes. 15 minutes, 30 minutes for the actual solution. And it's like, it'll be fun. But Adriel and Bentley, you're coming, right? I believe Janelle might be coming. And I think Eric as well, who was here last week.
Awesome.
Cool. That should be fun.
Mm-hmm. And so having a discussion with that, and it'll be fun. It will be hard, like, because Eric has an idea for education already, like his like getting right in. So it's partly that, and like I have an idea for everything, but it's like not holding too tightly to like my idea has to be the thing we have at the end. It's like or needing to talk. Like it's like 15 minutes, maybe everyone can't share what the problem with education is. It's letting like the conversation be alive in and of itself, or even if you're not the one participating, it's the thing that's created by the end. It's like, oh, that's an actual possible thing that none of us could have created by ourselves.
Yeah.
That was during an hour of time.
Also useful to be explicit in both expecting that and like acknowledging it. Like sort of saying the like your idea and how that's affecting it. I mean, not everyone will be comfortable in that, but almost saying that from the get-go, like, hey, people are going to be coming to this with their own idea. People tend to be defensive of their ideas. So whenever possible, let's, you know, freely admit, or even at the end saying like, oh, you know, we came up with this idea. I like the fact, you know, that this sliver of it here, I think sort of branched off of this conversation, you know, that came from my idea. So I feel comfortable that like my fingerprint is on there somewhere.
Yeah. Like honestly, just being part of it, you created it. And then even just like I said, later on when there's multiple ones going on and they're competing with each other, it's like, yes, you got to participate in that. You still made it better. Like yours wasn't chosen this week, but like, did you enjoy the thing?
Right.
Did you enjoy participating and creating something? Because you also created something that wasn't created beforehand, and it's seeing what all these different ones create and then how they're expressed and how, but right now it's just one conversation, 1 hour.
And some people, their role might just be to poke holes, and that's still insanely valuable.
Yeah. I
didn't create it, but I stopped these 3 things from happening that would have been bad.
Taking all the children away and educating them was not the thing we wanted to have happen. Kidnap all the children and then raise them. No, that's just not sound like a good idea. I could see some historical.
Taking children away. I can't see any current, you know, news events that might be analogous that would cause problems.
Yeah. That are in Canada. Yeah. All right. Well, we are at the hour mark. We have like 30 seconds left for an hour, and we took a little while to go live. Does anyone have anything to wrap it up? I'm good. Seeing everyone tomorrow, minus Jonas. Seeing Jonas next week.
I think we're good.
All right. Goodbye, YouTube. Thanks for our second board meeting. See you next week for this and tomorrow for solutions raising.